All right, viewers, now for this morning, we are getting into some conversations about finance and preparations for the T.H.A. budget. So the T.H.A. budget is due constitutionally by the end of June every year. However, the Tobago House of Assembly is getting ahead and starting the discussions going. And we are getting into their heads, so to speak, as to what the presentation this year will look like. Because, of course, it will be the first presentation delivered by Finance Secretary Petal and Roberts since taking up her role. So she's on with me this morning. So good morning and welcome to you, Ms. Petal and Roberts. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine, thank you. And thank you for having me. Good morning to Tobago and all of viewers.
And of course, alongside her, we also have Mr. Anslem Richards in the capacity of advisor to the Division of Finance, Trade and the Economy. So good morning, Mr. Richards.
Good morning. Ms. Jackson, good morning, Tobago, good morning, world, wherever you are. Thanks for having us.
All right, great. So we're getting into the preparation time for the T.H.A. budget. Tell me a little bit about, what's the focus this year for the budget?
We have some focal areas. Obviously, we want to build the economy. The economy has dealt with some shocks, and therefore tourism, agriculture, digitization, and human capital development are top of our agenda. There are also some other areas, but these trump everything else in rebuilding and stabilizing the economy of Tobago.
All right. So what are the things that did not do that you guys were not able to accomplish in this fiscal year that you're hoping to incorporate into the plans for the next fiscal year?
Well, the fiscal year ends in September, so we still, we're still going. But I think that there are some focal points that we want to continue and that we feel that can have an impact on really rebuilding this economy. And those are the four that I just spoke about. We are still doing an assessment of the last 6 months. Funding is a challenge. Capacity is a challenge. We have so many challenges, but even with a new government, and we are at the mid-year review, we want to look at some of our initiatives, look at our liabilities, look at the things that we intended to do in fiscal 2025, and do an assessment. We have already done that kind of work because even before we were heading into an election, so we did have a plan as to what are some of the things we're going to go to the central government with. And we have that plan already, and we're going to see if we can have a meeting. Well, we're waiting on them to see if we can have a meeting sometime soon, maybe next week.
And of course, we're sort of jumping the conversation a little bit, but I mean, as you brought that up, what are some of those plans that you're hoping to take to the new central government and the new Minister of Finance?
Definitely the issue of self-determination for Tobago. We had so many bills being drafted and none of them really materialized into law. So obviously, Mr. Richards will talk more on that, where we would want to look at the two that we had, the one in 2013 and the most recent one, and build on that and come up with the ideal legislation for Tobago to have its autonomy. So that's one, and Mr. Richards will expound on that. Secondly, we do have significant amount of liabilities. This is the first administration that has had the highest liability inherited ever in the history of the Tobago House of Assembly. And it was about $1 billion, and we have not been able to successfully settle all. And I don't think
Where are we right now in settling it? Like, how much is the bill at this point in time?
Our liabilities that we inherited is in the vicinity about 400 to 500 million still. And we did indicate to the public that we did have a forensic audit done, and because of that, some of those liabilities will have come off the books because the forensic auditors would have said, listen, we got invoiced for this, no work was done. And then we were seeing where we were overcharged. So the liability actually came down because of that, but we were not able to settle and pay the legitimate ones as we would have liked. So far, we paid approximately 68 million in liabilities, 42 million in fiscal 2023, and then 26 million in fiscal 2024. And we are currently making some payments to contractors as we speak.
All right. So, Mr. Richards, I sort of want to bring you into the conversation. Now, as Ms. Roberts pointed out, there's been quite a bit of a challenge with the Tobago House of Assembly and how you treat with the liabilities. What's been some of the things that you guys been doing to sort of treat with those liabilities and also pay the contractors on time, the ones that, might have rendered services over the past 3 years? Tell me a little bit about getting that done.
Well, that's really where the rubber hits the road in terms of our fiscal and financial space. The T.H.A is boxed into a financial box and a fiscal box because we can't borrow. So whatever we get from Port of Spain is what we have to, as the boys on the street will say, juggle around and make sure we touch everybody in a positive way. And as Secretary said, we were really, just imagine that and these liabilities are on the development side of the expenditure. And from fiscal 2022, our development budget was reduced from $400 million to $205 million in fiscal 2023. So you see the kind of fiscal constraint you are working with.
Yes.
And that's why we will only be able to make these small payments, just trying to keep the economy alive and pumping some resources to keep some economic activity happening. But our ability to pay really is directly linked to our allocation from Port of Spain, our development allocation. There's a positive direct correlation between our ability to pay. There's no escaping that. And we have not had that opportunity in the last budget. They reduce it. They haven't given us the money. Not for a want of action. We went to present the information over and over. Every year we go in and see there's a liability. And the Secretary will tell you that the Minister of Finance say, well, every government does get liability. What do you want me to do? So he's saying, go and handle your story. And we do have the luxury of borrowing to deal with this liability. So that has been the constraint. So we have been able to pay small bits and so forth. And as Secretary said, we are moving now to make another payment. The intention is to pay another 25. So we are working that. And we have to be looking around the whole ecosystem of the financing, see where we can pull a $5 from a $10 to make up this bulk of money to pay contractor. And that has really stymied the heartbeat of the Tobago economy. And therefore, we are hoping that with the mid-year review, we can get a oomph in our allocation and give us the financial muscle to do a heavy lifting where those liabilities are.
Now, one of the things that you've been very vocal about is the fact that our overdraft situation, when the releases do not come on block, it causes, that overdraft to happen, which of course incurs a fee.
Yes.
How much does that affect your overall ability to handle the tasks that are set out for each quarter?
That has had a negative impact on the cash flow position of the Assembly. So let me explain to you how the overdraft works. We wait. As Secretary of Finance, let me first say, I can't tell you when the next check is coming. That has always been for the last 2 decades. You can never tell because it doesn't come according to the law. So we are now in May. In April 1st, I should have had a check for April, May, and June to take care of that. I think we received, because the checks don't come directly to the Secretary of Finance, but they'll inform me. I think about 2 weeks ago, the Director of Finance did indicate to me, well, we received the check for April and May. So we have gotten April and May's allocation. And in June, we received the check for June. Now, what that does, when it is time for June's payment, we can't wait. We don't know when the check is coming. So we'll have to incur the expenditure, go ahead and utilize the overdraft to fund the expenditure. And that comes at an interest rate of about 8% on the increase. So even as you use the overdraft, as it goes up, the interest remains the same. The interest rate remains the same, but the actual interest increases. Now, that is a non-parliamentary expenditure. We don't get any funding from the government to cover this expenditure. And therefore, the bank takes out their interest. So the amount of money we have available is reduced by this overdraft.
Basically by 8%.
Well, 8% of whatever we have used. The next thing is there's a cumulative effect. We have never settled the overdraft interest, ever. So right now we are in a hole approximately $50 million. So for instance, if the government sends a check now for $100 million, we only have 50 to spend because the bank takes out their overdraft interest. It comes out automatically as we utilize the overdraft. That is another issue I have on the agenda to raise with the minister. because my cash flow, my liquidity position is not as the books, the paperwork will state.
And then how does this, affect just your ability to even manage how things are run in the division and even within the T.H.A. itself?
It has been a challenge from day one. I also worked as a chief management accountant at the office of the chief secretary before being appointed secretary of finance and counselor. And then I also worked in the division of finance as senior financial analyst. So I've always understood the impact of this. And we have said time and time again to the central government, whichever is in office, this is what we face. How we manage, the good thing is we issue checks, and checks are not drawn immediately, but we have the funds in the account for the unpresented checks. So really and truly, there is money in the bank, but the money is not available for spending, and that is what we kind of rely on, and the overdraft facility of about $250 million.
What about in terms of, the criticism that we've heard from the PNM that the T.H.A. has the ability to shift around money? Because, they said that, okay, you've gotten what you what the government has decided,
Yes.
and now it's up to you to decide how you spend that money. So even though you go through the Standing Finance Committee in Parliament and you approve the expenditure for all of these line items and so on, you still need to, you are still in charge of how that money is shifted around. How do you treat with that argument when it's put forth that, even though that overdraft happens, you still have the authority to treat with that through other means by shifting around money?
So, it's interesting that they would say that, but there are two things that they're not telling the public. One, as I did indicate before, we inherited the highest liability ever. So can you imagine spending your allocation on settling liabilities? The impact of the development of Tobago will be stymied for that. So although they are saying that, we still as an administration have to take care of our priorities and the ones that they incurred. So they are not making that case. And also 4.3% of the national pie does not give each Tobagonian the dollar. And that's why you would hear persons in the public space squealing about not being able to take advantage of the resources. Because if you give me 4.35%, it means that is only some of the population would benefit, when we really should have an allocation of about 5.1% at minimum, because that is the percentage share of Tobago's population of the national population. So those are two things that they're not saying. So although yes, we are able to move around, we have fixed costs as well. Employment cost is about 42%. I cannot shift that. I can't move that because I will have to pay persons. Then we have current transfers and subsidies. This is where we give support to all our state entities, the assistance to churches, community organizations. This takes up about 36% of the budget. So that's 42 and 36, that's about 70-something%. So all we have to move around is 23%, and that involves keeping the lights on. These are your utilities, your telephone, your water, your janitorial, your security. And these are the services that are going to get hard hit. So it's easy to come and say, so why it is they have more money? Why don't they just move around? It's not as simple as just moving around. So as I said before, the decision to pay contractors is one that can affect something else. When I pay contractors now, it means that something else is affected. And that's why you're feeling the pinch in the public space. So the conversation with this new government is that we are not going to accept anything less than 5.1%, because that is the percentage share of Tobago's population to the national population. But I think if at the mid-year, that would be another request that we would make, to give us a difference of the 0.8%, so that we can take care of some of the needs that we have.
And what's that difference in real-time figures?
About 500 million?
Yeah, just under about 500 million.
And so with that 500 million, then what's the goal? Like if the new government is to give you that in a mid-year review, what is our plan for that 500 million?
We have all 44 priority projects. I've said that time and time again. In this fiscal year, we have 44 and 44. We have identified 44 priority projects. So those are the ones we want to advance. And we want to settle the contractors, the ones that the forensic audit would have recommended that we pay after they have done their assessment of the works that were done. They have recommended, okay, this invoice was 5 million, it is worth 4 million, and that kind of thing. So we want to settle contractors, and we would like to advance our priority projects.
Yes, and I want to talk a little bit about that 44 and 44. So, because yes, that was the theme for the reprioritized budget.
Yes.
How far are we in achieving that?
Well, there are several stages. You know, we have 38 under the development and 6 under recurrent. Under the recurrent, I'll give you one of them is POSH, which is the public officer subsidized housing. I know the process for that have started. They've asked persons to apply for the lands that are available for public officers. We do have several development projects that have already passed tender stage and are currently in execution. So we are getting there. As you know, we have 2 constraints. One, how we receive funding from the government, that really is directly linked to the momentum at which these projects are advanced. And as I did indicate, we don't get the monies quarterly or block in advance. And on the development side, it's only 205 million. We also have to shift from the recurrent to DP. And because we don't get the resources as we would like, that process also takes a while. But we have so far moved $30 million from recurrent to DP to take care of some of our development priorities. And right now we have already earmarked another 20 to move. So we're doing it incrementally as the funds are available from central government. So basically, and I'll give you the second challenge that we have. We do have implementation deficit in terms of the human capital development. We need training in the Tobago House of Assembly. And that is one of the priorities for my 2026 budget. So it's tourism, agriculture, digitization. We really have to utilize and leverage on technology. And then human capital development is big on my agenda for the next budget.
All right, no problem. But we're not done yet with this conversation, but we got to go for a quick break. But we'll be right back after this. And welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates, viewers. We are chatting this morning about finance, and of course, that means that we have the Secretary of Finance on with us, and that's Ms. Petal and Roberts, as well as the advisor in the division, Mr. Anslem Richards, right? So before we went to the break, we were speaking a little bit about the preparations for Fiscal 2026,
yes.
The T.H.A. Fiscal 2026. And are you also right now, are you consulting with the various stakeholders and so on?
Definitely. That actually starts, in terms of the interest groups, it starts next week, Monday. We start with the division of, the tourism industry, not the division, but the tourism stakeholders. We start with them. And on Tuesday, we're going to speak with all our special purpose companies, the chairman of all those companies, to know what their plans are. And then on Wednesday, we are going to meet with the banks and financial institutions. Actually, today, we're going to launch an online platform where the public can submit their recommendations, their views, their concerns. And it would be across all of social media handles. If you're looking for it, you would see the Division of Finance or the Tobago House of Assembly budget consultation. And you click here, you click the link, and you'll have access. Very simple. We just want to know what sector you are going to speak on. And we're going to give you a text box so that you can type your submission. And then we want to know where you're from. And that's basically it. So on the back end, we will collate the information, and it would be, for consideration. We want to hear what the public is thinking in terms of fiscal 2026 and what their expectations are. We continue the consultations the following week because we have other things going on. So it continues the following week with credit unions and cooperatives, agriculture. We're going to meet with youth, civil society, and faith-based organizations. So we'll also publicize those dates. But I'll just tell you for next week, we're going to start Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with tourism, our special purpose companies, and the financial institutions and the banks.
And of course, this will be your first budget presentation as a Secretary of Finance.
Yes.
So are we going to be expecting a long presentation this year?
Definitely not. As a matter of fact, when I met with the team, so we do have a budget team in the division. I would say it's headed by Mr. Richards on the technical side, but as Secretary, I am the buck stops with me. the team, when I told the team, I'd like to switch the way in which we do the budget. Instead of a long budget in June and a bridge version, just because of the allocations coming sometime in September, October, and in November I present, I'm going to do the flip side. We're going to have a shorter presentation. And when we know what the actual figures are, we're going to have a longer presentation in whenever that is. If it's October or November, it depends on when the budget is read at the end of this fiscal. So that is, it's going to be at max 2 hours. We will have the priorities, but we will not go into details because we don't know what the actual allocations are. So we're going to just summarize for you what our priorities are, what the policies are in creating the greatest little island on the planet for the next fiscal. And then in the next budget, in the revised budget, we're going to expound on those initiatives and the priorities and policies of the Assembly.
And that's certainly something to look forward to, a change. A new
Yes.
secretary, a change in the way the budget is done.
Yes.
Because, there's always a criticism that what happens in June is basically a wish list.
Correct. So we don't want a wish list. No, the thing is, in Tobago, we need to let the central government know, the nation know, the world know what we intend to do.
Right.
So we will have, I don't want to call it a wish list. These are our desires. These are our needs. These are critical areas. These are priorities and policies that we'd like to see executed. So rather than hinging it on a figure in the sky or what we predicate it on in terms of what we think we will get, we'll do that same thing, but an abridged version, and then come back with the real numbers and exactly precisely what we will do in the later budget, in the revised budget.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you mentioned earlier that you are hoping that, or you are trying to negotiate with you will be negotiating with the new government to get 5.1%.
Well, the thing is, that's the minimum.
That's the minimum. Yes.
What we requested in fiscal 2025 was 5.8. But we want to send a message. Now, Mr. Richards can go into that. The 4.03 is not just a figure. I think 4.35 is probably just a figure. That's what they give to us. But with the DRC's recommendation and their ruling, it's based on population size. Our population size right now, in comparison or as a percentage of the national population, is 5.1%. And therefore, it is only fair, reasonable, and just that Tobago gets at minimum 5.1%.
So, Mr. Richards, would you care to elaborate a little bit more on this?
Right.
I know this is your forte.
And I just want to go back to the issue of the wish list.
Yes.
This administration have never sent a wish list to Port of Spain. We have changed the culture of budgeting in Tobago when we came in 2021. Because our fiscal matrix is predicated about a projection of a budget and a percentage share. And then we build our programs based on that. Previous years, they came up with a figure and they just go. So there's a scientific methodology behind how we do the programming for the budget. So it takes away this wish listing because it's tied to some scientific basis as to how you arrive at your numbers. And it goes back to the DRC. So the DRC ruling in 2000 was based, as Secretary was saying, on the percentage share of the population. Tobago population as a percentage share of the national population. And in 2000, we were at 4.03%, and that is where that figure came from. Right, and they say, because Tobago were not serviced properly over the years and there are plenty catching up to do, they say that is the minimum, but you can make some investment up to 6.9% to bring for Tobago to catch up. And
yes.
As a matter of fact, in the Tobago Assembly, there are some socio-economic reality that the government of Trinidad should give consideration to close that 6.9% gap. And they have not paid attention to that. The reality of the situation now is that the Tobago population have grown continuously from 2000 to 2021. And the last calculation we did, and the data is there, the population of Tobago is 5.1%. You remember in 2021, the Prime Minister, who is now the ex-leader of the PNM and the ex-Prime Minister, came to us and said, when we had the 6-6 tie, that the Tobago population have increased, and EBC said we could increase the government by creating 3 seats. So we moved the government from 12 to 15, which is a 25% increase in government. That is now law. So we had a bigger population, we have a bigger government. because we have more people to serve.
And I
But
want
hold
to
on.
stick a pin. I want to stick a pin there. As you mentioned that, right? How much did the expansion of the assembly, having three new assemblymen and so on, how much did that impact also the wage bill and all of that? Because
Well, I am getting there. So what happened is that the population required a bigger government, but they continue to give us the same 4.03%. So you have a bigger population. So if it's 4 of us, and we were getting 4.03%, and we are now 5. So if we were getting $4, everybody was getting $1. If it's 5 of us now, you're giving us $4 still. We are no longer getting $1. Everybody's getting 80 cents. So it cuts our ability to service the people of Tobago at the level at which they should be serviced in a just, fair, and correct allocation. And that's it. And if you do the maths, they increase the government by 25%. If you 25% of 4 is 1%, and that's what we say, and you go to 5.1%, the math is easy and simple, and the number speaks to it. And that's why the secretary can sit with confidence and say, we are just asking for our bare minimum, which is our per capita share of the budget, which is 5.1%. If they give us that, we will be able to do much more for the people of Tobago. We'll be able to do a rapid advancement towards the greatest little island on the planet, because we'll have some fiscal and financial space and to do the kind of things that we need to do in the Tobago. Because we have some catching up to do. There are some serious systemic problems in the Tobago space in terms of our institutional capacity, our implementation capacity, our technological capacity, our human resource capacity, our social and economic infrastructure need to be modernized. We have to look to green our environment. So there are a lot of things for us to do. There's a significant work to do towards this autonomy in terms of the reconfiguration of our institutions in the T.H.A. to take up this new level of responsibility of lawmaking and all of that. So there's a whole ecosystem of transformation that we need to do to prepare Tobago to become this greatest little island. And we need to get the resources, both at the state level and the private sector level, to do the kind of strategic investment that is required for us to do the transformation. And that's the program we are working with. That's the program the Secretary of Finance and the Chief Secretary has mandated us to do, and that is what we are working on. We have a technical team of which I am the chair, with all the technical officers across the T.H.A. that has put that whole pathway towards the greatest little island on the planet. And we have a plan, very, very comprehensive. I think we're looking to launch it, a soft launch at the presentation of the budget. So you can go online and see all the plans and what we are planning to do and the markers and what we want to achieve by what time and so forth. So that is the work is being done. So we are not traveling this journey towards the greatest little island in any blind man arrangement, right? It is a visual progression, and we want to bring all of Tobago along the journey. None will be left behind, no voice will go unheard. Every concern will be attended to.
Now, with this new government coming on stream, will one of the things you'll be doing, at least in maybe the short term, is to have another DRC ruling to adjust to the new realities of Tobago? Or will you just be going straight for a new autonomy bill?
I think our best option, our preferred option, is a new autonomy bill. And I think we can get that done before the end of this year. And let me tell you why. The numbers in Parliament is favorable. The UNC has 26 seats, I think.
26, yes.
And the T.H.A. has 2. So that takes us to 28. We just need 2 votes to do the supermajority, that you need to do some of the deeper constitutional transformation that you need to give us the depth of the autonomy that we need and we're entitled to. So that could be done. Because listen, and the world Tobago Trinidad, we have done consultation on this autonomy bill in earnest from 1977 to 2024. The work has been done. Right? There was a body of politics that was drowned in this thing out. I am hoping that we are at a place now to be going and have put some of that Red Sea apart out of this thing. And they consolidate the effort into the blue wave. And we can now engage the central government and say this is what the people of Tobago consider to be the minimum constitutional transformation to give us the autonomy we require. And we can do that. Remember this, the incumbent central government would have presented a bill in 2013. So they have a legacy in this. So what will happen between 2013 and now? We can take the final bill that came at the end of last year as a measure that would have consumed all that happened between 2013 and now. We go back to the 2013, we put the 2013 billion, we put the 2024 billion, and we consolidate it, we modernize the provisions, and we deal with the limitation that we would have identified in the 2020 bill and the 2013 bill, and we come up with one document. That could happen within the first 100 days with the work of the Chief Parliamentary Council. This is not a rocket science. And this could form part of the first package of legislation that the new central government brings to Parliament. And by the end of the year, and this could be ready for when we, after the next T.H.A. election, we start up the next assembly under the autonomy arrangement.
Yes.
And that's the goal for the people of Tobago. Yeah. And we are not going to miss that target at this time. The Chief Secretary is leading this. He's out front.
Now, going back to the budget itself, I know one of the things that sometimes goes against, or at least what was explained against the T.H.A. budget, is that revenue collected in Tobago from taxes paid is usually taken out at the end, or it's subtracted, or something like that, towards the end of the fiscal year. Tell me about wanting to have that changed.
All right. So I think what you're saying, there's a shortfall of the appropriation, right?
Yes.
So Tobago has a unique arrangement where the taxes that we collect is offset against the appropriations that we get. So let me just simplify it. If at the appropriation in Trinidad, when the act is passed, they say Tobago is going to be appropriated or allocated $100, and we collect taxes of $20 in Tobago, they would really give us $80. But the arithmetic of that on September 30th, I don't know what goes wrong, but I think that in Trinidad, they determine how much they give us even before we say, all right, this is all that we have collected. So let me use the 80, 20, and 100. So if we have collected $20 in the year, only by September 30th, we'll be able to say we have collected 20 or we have collected $18. If we have not collected 20, but we collected $18, the government has $82 for us, right? Now, the thing is, before September 30th, I think they determine what they're going to give us. So we don't get 18, we get even less. And that is where we calculate over the last, I think it's 7 or 8 years, that the government has $166 million for us. Because if an act was passed and they said we're going to give Tobago $100, and we count over the years how much we have received, we have calculated the variance or the differential and said, listen, you still have this amount of money for us by law, right?
So the taxes, do you get to include it into?
No, what happens is that we project taxes, and if we don't collect that amount, the government has the difference for us. That's really what happens. So we say by 10 a.m. on September 30th, or the last working day, this is the amount that we are collecting, and therefore you have a check, you have a difference to give us to make up the total appropriation, and that doesn't happen.
So if I understand this correctly, right? So you have a minus from the taxes that are supposed to be collected into Tobago.
The projection is not normally actualized.
Right. And as well as what is taken out for overdraft facilities.
Correct.
So then that's a double whammy in sense.
Correct.
Of,
absolutely. Absolutely. So that's what I'm saying. Our liquidity position is not as what the paperwork says. So what our opposers or political opponents will say is that you have received this, but really and truly in cash terms, we have not collected that because of an overdraft facility and because we do not get exactly what the appropriation act says that Tobago is should be allocated. That is what is happening in reality with Tobago.
All right. Well, we're not quite done yet, viewers. We still got a little bit more time with Ms. Petal and Roberts and Mr. Anslem Richards as we talk about finance, preparations for budget 2026, and of course, the new incoming government, and what Tobago is going to be advocated for over the next 5 years. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. Viewers, we are continuing our conversations this morning with the Secretary of Finance, Trade and the Economy, Petal and Roberts, as well as advisor to the division, Mr. Anslem Richards. Now, you raised something on the political platform probably about a week ago or so about the challenges that the T.H.A. is having, or at least Tobago is having, with the T.T.R.A., which is Trans-Tobago Revenue Authority Act, that was put into place just last
2021.
year. So, and it's affecting the way how even property tax is collected
Correct.
and the way how workers are being able to function.
Yes.
Has anything changed since?
So let me just give some history. In December 2021, just before Christmas, the government went to the parliament and they passed the T.H.A. Act. Well, the bill, and it was converted into law. And when I became Secretary of Finance, Mr. Richards and I looked at that legislation to see the provisions and considerations for Tobago. And we were appalled when we saw the way in which this bill was done in terms of the revenue collection. So Section 26 says that the Director General, who is the head of the T.H.A., has the authority now to collect all revenues for the country, and it's deposited into the Exchequer account. Currently in Tobago, the Tobago House of Assembly Act says that all revenues collected here in Tobago, it should go into the T.H.A. fund account. Now, with this act, I think that it supersedes what the T.H.A. Act says. If the T.H.A. came into 2021, and that speaks to all revenues collected, they are saying now with this law that the revenues now go into that. Secondly, there are some other things that were not considered. The movement or the transition from Board of Inland Revenue and Customs into the T.H.A., Tobago's officers were not offered any options as to the transition into that. So their colleagues in Trinidad were given options and offers as to what would you like? Would you like to leave the T.H.A.? Would you like to go over and be subsumed into the public service? Would you like to go over into the T.H.A. into a position that is similar to yours and that kind of thing? In Tobago, that was never done. Another thing that was not done at the district office level, where our property taxes are collected in Tobago, the staff has no resources in terms of computers. They don't have access to the software. They don't have scanners to do the actual, I think there's something that they do in terms of the collection of property tax. They need to scan documents. They have access to none. Now, at the Tobago House of Assembly level, I said, as secretary, I'll provide the resources. And they said, no, the computers come with security features and they will have to provide that. And Kandace, to date, that has not been done. We have had several conversations. And you know what's the interesting thing? The Director General said, you know, all these things we never knew. They never understood Tobago. They want to know how it is the Board of Inland Revenue operates. Instead of the government doing the research before, they run and implement this act and operationalize this thing. And now considering how Tobago operates. And I'll tell you, we have been seeing this throughout. I'll give another example. We have IFMIS, which is the Integrated Financial Management Information System, to digitize the operations from requisition right down to the check collection, the budgeting, the procurement, all of those things they would like to digitize. The government went and took a loan of $50 million from the IDB to do this project. Tobago, we begged, as Chief Management Accountant and Senior Financial Analyst, we begged to be part of the pilot. Let Tobago be a part of the pilot of this.
And I remember even Joel Jack back in the day was talking about that when he was in that position.
Yes. So we did ask them to put us as a pilot because Tobago is very different. It's not even like a ministry. It's not like anything else. The T.H.A. is a creature on its own. So we said, listen, let us be a part of the pilot. And that project has now been stalled because they didn't even know that we have a commercial bank system and we don't bank with the central bank. They only knew that as they went along. So we came up with a lot of hindrances and blockages now so that we can't move forward. So when I came into office as secretary, I asked the ministry, let us lead it. Give us the resources in terms of the consultant and the company who's doing the implementation and let us lead it for ourselves because in Trinidad, you all don't understand how we operate. We alone understand how we operate. We can relate to us. If you ask us a question, we can respond. So I've asked for that, but that is coming along slowly but surely because I've since hired a project manager for digitization projects in the T.H.A. under the Division of Finance, and that is one of the projects that I actually have a champion at the division to lead off this. But with a change in government now, this is another thing I want to speak to the Minister of Finance about in terms of IFMIS, where they are in Trinidad and in Tobago. I'd like to have the resources to let us run with this because to run Tobago, $2.5 billion manually That in itself is another challenge that we face.
No, I mean, and as you bring that up now, it doesn't mean that for this year, technically, the revenue collection would be less with the problems that you're pointing out with the
Right,
T.H.A.
no. So let me explain what has happened. So in the Board of Inland Revenue, there are two sections. There's regional where it's under, they collect income tax and all those other taxes. Property taxes are collected there. So what you have done is sideline the district revenue officers because they now they have not been trained. They don't have the computers. They don't have the scanners. Well, I bought the scanners. We are waiting on the computers. You can't use a scanner without the software and the computers and the training. So the staff is still there doing, I think they probably do some tax collections, which are very menial, but the property tax is collected on the regional side and the other side of the Board of Inland Revenue.
Wow. And of course, what was said, that was the property tax was supposed to remain with local government bodies, Trinidad, T.H.A, and Tobago.
They didn't map it out properly.
Didn't.
So one of the things I'm requesting from the minister is an amendment because there are some other considerations whereby we want to make a change to ensure that the Secretary of Finance, whoever that is, it doesn't have to be me, whoever it is, will have considerations and conversations with the minister. There is absolutely no provision in the Act for that, no conversations at the level of the Tobago House of Assembly and the body called the T.H.A. So we want to make changes to that as well as the composition of the board of the T.H.A. We want to make some considerations for Tobago to be a part of that. So we have sent the amendments to the minister last year, December. Because we met in September, we came back, we sat with our senior state council, myself, we have a team, and we went through and we made the proposed amendments to the minister. I did not get a response from the former Minister of Finance. What I did in January, I sent him another letter indicating to him these are some of the critical items we discussed, and we have not yet had any resolutions, just a reminder of these things. So again, I did bring 10 items to the minister in August 30th, 2024. And it's very, very disappointing to tell you that the same 10, with the exception of one, which he resolved by putting the former Secretary of Finance on the Central Bank Board. That was the only one that was resolved.
What about after there was a change and there was a change in the Minister of Finance? Were you able to meet with him at all in that period?
I did send a congratulatory letter to him asking for a meeting, but you remember the Parliament was prorogued and elections were near. So I did not have an opportunity to have any conversations at all. But I can let you know that the ministry did advance the conversations on the SRC payments in terms of the arrears, because you know they made some increases incrementally over a period, and therefore not only the increases in salaries the high level senior executive and administrative officers would see, but also there is a back pay on arrears to be paid, and they continue that conversation.
You know, I keep seeing lots of things that are minusing from the actual budget allocation as we continue to speak. Correct. And it'll be interesting.
So we expect to see an increase for that. I don't intend for us to utilize the actual allocation. I think we need an increase. So that is one of the items for the mid-year to speak about with the ministry, an increase, a supplementation of the allocations for the SRC arrears, and then we'll ask for other things in terms of our development. With $205 million, we're just not able to advance this economy in any significant way.
All right, so now moving ahead, we're looking to what's going to happen for the next fiscal year, welcoming the new Minister of Finance. Have you all reached out to the team yet? I know, I mean, of course, later
there's no team. There's no team, but the swearing of the Prime Minister would be today. Yeah. And we expect that the appointments of the others will follow. I know the Chief Secretary will have conversations with the Prime Minister as well, so we look forward to that. Actually, we have already been prepared. We have been preparing even before the election. Whoever the minister would be, I told the team, we need to start the groundwork of putting together a dossier of the items that we want to discuss.
Right, and of course, we're moving ahead to preparations for June, and this is where we want also the public to be part of the conversation.
Yes. So this budget it's not my budget, it's not Farley's budget, Honorable Farley Salvador Augustin's budget, is not Anslem's budget, it's not Dr. Hazel's budget. These are the key persons that actually craft the presentation. It's the people of Tobago's budget, and therefore we are having two types of consultations. I will meet one-on-one with some interest groups starting next week, but the public will have an online platform. It will be launched today on all our social media handles, all our platforms. So on the T.H.A's website, right now the Division of Finance website is done. We are doing some overhauls. The Facebook pages of all the divisions, we're going to have the link there for the public to go online and submit your recommendations, concerns, what you'd like to see for the next fiscal year.
And is there anything else, I mean, as we get ready to wrap up this morning, that you want to leave with the public?
I think we are good. We are, as Secretary said, this budget preparation is the people's budget. The administration is the people's administration. The party is Tobago's People's Party.
Yes.
So everything belongs to the people, and we are creating all opportunities for the people to have a very active role and participation in their democracy, determining their own future. As I said, this journey towards the greatest little island on the planet is a all Tobago journey. It's not Farley and Friends journey. It's Tobago journey led by Farley and technical people who is working with him to ensure that the technical parameters and the requirements to deliver this greatest little island on the planet are provided and and monitor over time. So it is in the interest of the people to participate and monitor their own development, their own progress, and how the work of the administration is impacting them positively, negatively, and give the feedback to the administration. And that is what we want to create, a very active and participatory democracy. And I think with that, Tobago will be in a good place. The people of Tobago will benefit, and at the end of the day, all of us will arrive at that destiny, the greatest little island on the planet.
I just want to add, though, that, as we engage the public, you will provide your submissions, you will constructively critique how we do things. We do listen to you, but the thing about it is it's not practical to implement everything in 1 year, even in 4 years. And one of the approaches I would like to take is when we collate and extract the submissions from the public, we may not be able to accede to requests in the next budget, but we will want to consider it going forward in our development pathway plan. So even if you would have submitted and you don't see it appear significantly in the presentation, I would like to let the public know that it will be considered within the next 4 years and even going forward, because the development pathway is for the next 25 years, right? So we are considering Tobago. Everything cannot be in 1 year. It's just not practical. But we are considering your recommendations for improving Tobago and making Tobago the greatest little island on the planet.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Roberts and Mr. Richards, for being on with us and for giving us some insight as to what's going on fiscally with the T.H.A. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
And viewers, that's how we're going to end the show this morning. It was a pleasure being with you. As always, I am Kandace Jackson, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand new dawning as the passion start to rise.